Getting to ride your own bike is great. You know how it handles, you know all its quirks, and you have everything set up just how you like it. We all like to keep our bikes running as comfortably as we can, but sometimes we don't realise what we need to improve on our bikes until we ride something else. Well, today I'm going to do just that. I'm swapping bikes with another YouTuber for 3 weeks. Swapping bikes with a friend is a great thing to do. When we want to buy a bike, we sit on it at the shop, but that doesn't give us any idea of how the bike actually rides. Swapping bikes for the next 3 weeks will give me a full insight into how the bike handles and how it feels riding a bike with different components to mine. As we go, I'll review it and discuss the things that I like or dislike about it. So I'm swapping my Cube Stereo 150 Enduro bike for the Specialized Stumpjumper trail bike. Luckily, me and Gary from Adventure Trails are a similar size and we ride in a similar way, so swapping bikes is easy for us and should be a lot of fun. So I've just picked up the new rig from Gary. I'm going to load it in the car, take it back to Devon, and let's give this thing a test ride. So my plan for the next 3 weeks is to ride this bike in as many different places as possible. This will give me a great idea of what I like about it and what I don't. Then this can help me make component changes to my bike and help me improve my own setup. Okay, so I've made it back to Devon and I'm heading out for my first ride on the bike. But of course, when a friend lends you their pride and joy, which cost a few £1,000s, it's important to treat their bike in the manner that it deserves. And ride it like you stole it. So before we take to the trails, let's take 20 seconds to check out the bike, because it has some parts on it that are pretty new to me. This bike is a 2020 Specialized Stumpjumper Carbon Comp. It's a large size frame, has 29-inch wheels, air-sprung Fox 34 up front with 160mm of travel, 140 rear end travel, tag rise bars, a SRAM NX drivetrain, oval chainring, and a twist shift gear shifter. Wow. So of course, two of the strangest components on the bike are the oval chainring and the twist shift to change gears. I've never tried either of these on a proper mountain bike before, so I'm keen to give them a go and see how I get on. That's the technical stuff done, now let's head out on a ride. To get an idea of the bike's capabilities, I first drop in on a red trail. This should help me get a feel for the bike and get used to how it handles. I've ridden this trail many times in the past, so I know what's coming. This means I can really focus on the bike. It always takes a few rides to get comfortable on a different bike, so at this point I'm just taking it easy and feeling where its limits are. Of course, this bike should have absolutely no problems handling a trail like this, but what I am looking to do is get a feel for the frame, the weight of the bike, and how things like the suspension and tyres handle this type of terrain. All these are fundamental for getting a feel for the bike's speed and manoeuvrability. It's always interesting trying new bikes and seeing how they cope with climbs and different types of descents. It's also good to try out on a few features too. Not too far into the trail, I already have some thoughts on how the bike handles. So one thing that I've noticed already is that this bike is really manoeuvrable, and I think that's down to 3 main things. Firstly, it's got these lovely set of rise bars. Definitely going to have to get a better set for my bike. Secondly, I think it's because the whole sort of cockpit area here is just a bit shorter than on the Cube Stereo, which means it's just a bit more manoeuvrable and a bit more playful. In terms of bike sizing, I awkwardly sit between a medium and large for pretty much every bike manufacturer, which means I'm either playing with something really playful or it's just a bit too big for me. This happily sits in a comfortable sort of niche for me, I guess. And thirdly, the suspension is awesome. I'm really enjoying this. It's really, really comfy. Oh, that suspension, lovely. Oh yeah, smooth. In only a short ride, I'm clearly enjoying this bike already. Yeah, let's go. So far, it feels really manoeuvrable and extremely playful. Depending on what type of mountain biking you enjoy, playfulness can be a key feature that you're looking for in a bike.
So this section is always a really fast one.
The Specialized doesn't feel as fast as my Cube, but that may be just the way I'm riding it because I'm not used to this bike. But don't get me wrong, as you can see, this bike knows how to haul ass. But that's not the most impressive feature. Compared to most, if not all the bikes I've ever ridden, the agility of the Stumpjumper is impressive. Oh, that was way easier. Awesome, that was a really enjoyable test ride. Nice. But how will it handle something a bit harder? So this bike is clearly happy riding normal blue and red trails. What I want to do now is put it to the test by taking some of the more off-piste downhill lines and see how we do. So it's really natural and it's probably quite wet, and I know it's really rooty in places. So this will be a really good test for the bike. Or a good test for me to see or handle the bike. I know that this bike is capable of handling technical terrain, but I want to see how capable it really is. Some of the natural trails I'm riding at the moment are the old enduro lines. It's a common misconception that if you buy a trail bike, it won't be able to handle off-piste like this. Well, I have to say, the Stumpjumper doesn't agree with that. It's making short work of this course. So, Specialized called the Stumpjumper an aggressive short travel bike. Although this exact one is slightly beefed up with a bigger suspension. But what does trail bike actually mean? Well, the line between trail and enduro bikes is extremely blurred nowadays. The majority of trail bikes now have more suspension than you're ever going to need for most trail setters. These bikes are well capable of handling enduro, and most enduro bikes are able to handle downhill, like we saw this year with the enduro bikes riding at the Red Bull Hardline. There you go, gets a bit more slow and technical now. Oh yeah, no problems, nice and easy on the shorter bike. Among other components, with a similar amount of travel between both bikes, enduro and trail bikes are both extremely capable. Stump jump. And there we have it, the Stumpjumper is clearly capable and has no problems riding off-piste trails. But if you're someone looking to buy a trail bike, you're probably looking for a bike that can do it all. And with that in mind, I have one final test for the Stumpjumper. To test out how playful this bike really is, I've come here to the Exeter bike park to have a little jump around. Let's get to it. To see if the Stumpjumper really is a playful do-it-all machine, it was time to put it to the test on some jumps. At the bike park, I had the chance to take the Specialized on a whole load of different features, and it was the perfect place to see how it handles in the air. Step up, nice. I'm used to riding a few jumps on my enduro bike, and it was strange to feel the difference between that and the Stumpjumper. The bike park environment is a great place to really get a feel for a new bike. You get a better idea of the weight of the bike in the air, the stability, its suspension, all whilst you're riding these challenging features. Oh, it's windy up here. On small trail jumps, I love the cushioning suspension of the Stumpjumper, but riding these bigger features, I felt that I wasn't able to preload as effectively or pump over things like rollers as well. Now, I'm really nitpicking about my personal preferences here, because this bike is great fun to ride. So, with all the riding done, what did I think of the bike? Looking at the Stumpjumper, let's explore 3 things that I liked about it, and 3 things that I'm not a fan of. And this is the great part, because it's completely subjective. How a bike rides or a component feels is not just down to how much it costs, but how it feels to you and if it fits your riding style. So let me start by saying, this bike was amazing fun. Of course, I prefer my Cube stereo, but that could just be because I'm used to riding it and I've got it how I like it. But the biggest compliment I can give any bike is that if I woke up and magically my Cube stereo had changed into the Stumpjumper, I wouldn't be kicking up too much of a fuss. So first on the list of things that I like is the size. The Stumpjumper is slightly shorter than my Cube, which makes for a really playful bike. So one of the ways I know that this bike's a bit shorter than mine is that it fits in my car really easily. This shorter size lends itself to the tighter technical sections and just my size in general. Because I sit between the medium and the large sizes, being on the smaller end of the large felt really manoeuvrable. Second on the list, love them or hate them, the oval chainring. Climbing up this hill, I really noticed the difference with the oval chainring. I can feel it's a more constant power every time I turn the cranks. I definitely noticed a huge improvement in pedaling efficiency, especially up the hills. I've never tried one of these before, but I'm definitely a convert. I love the oval chainring. And lastly, I've always loved a set of rise bars. They suit my style of riding and I feel they give me a huge advantage in terms of control. This is an easy fix for me. I'm definitely going to be getting a new set of bars with a bigger rise on them. And now for 3 things that I wasn't as much of a fan of. And the first one may come as a surprise. Originally, I liked the cushy Fox suspension. It seemed good for all the smaller jumps, but in fact, I ended up thinking that it was a little too soft. Now, I know you can adjust suspension to suit you, but after riding this for 3 weeks, I realised that I prefer riding my RockShox Lyric rather than the Fox 34. I know, right? I didn't see that coming. I really thought I'd prefer the Fox, but this is just one of those things. The RockShox just seem to suit me better. Perhaps the strangest component on the bike is the twist shift gear shifter. Now, I didn't talk much about this in the videos because my jury was still out, but to be honest, it has good and bad points. So firstly, it's simple and easy to use. It's just a twist of the wrist. It's much easier on your hands when you have a long day's ride. But I tend to ride with my hands on the end of the bars, which means I had to let go and move my hand to the inside of the bar every time I wanted to change gear. When you ride, it's not a great idea to be letting go of the bars, so the concept of the twist shift is awesome, the mechanics of using it just didn't work for me. So last on the list is the bottle cage. The Stumpy can only take a small bottle. Using a normal sized drink bottle means that you can't get it out of the cage without changing the suspension settings. Now this wouldn't stop me buying the bike, but just something that you should be aware of if you plan to head out for a longer ride. So there we go, this bike was awesome. And it honestly goes to show how versatile and capable modern trail bikes really can be. Although this one has had a few modifications, even a half decent trail bike right out of the box is still going to be able to do pretty much everything that you need it to. So with the review complete, I thought I'd better give it at least one clean before I give it back. I highly suggest that you try swapping bikes with a friend. It doesn't have to be for 3 weeks, perhaps just for a ride or 2. It can be a really great way to try out new components and compare them to yours. So remember to subscribe to the channel for more biking content, like this video, and I'll see you next time.